There's also this clip surfacing that's getting a lot of attention. And from 2019, it was at the United Nations General Assembly, and this was between President Zelinsky of Ukraine and then President Trump, where the former president, he urged Zelinsky to try to essentially patch things up with Vladimir Putin. Watch this.
I really hope that you and President Putin get together and can solve your problem. That would be a tremendous achievement, and I know you're trying to do that.
The whole time you're just watching Zelinsky's face because it's something. Like something is going on there. You've been covering Ukraine for a decade plus and covering him ever since he's kind of come on the scene. What do you see going on there?
Well, we all know, we've all been seeing the pictures of what was at stake in Ukraine and in its standoff with Russia. And Vladimir Zelinsky there, the president of Ukraine, knew very well that doing a deal with Putin, coming to terms with him, could have spelt the end of Ukrainian independence, its existence as a state, because he's been warning that that's what Russia wanted to do, destroy the independence of Ukraine and absorb it in some way. But this is a reminder of the kind of atmosphere we saw back in 2019, I think it was, with President Trump, then President Trump, sort of trying to do a deal with Putin in some way, trying to get other people to settle their differences with the Kremlin. And even
at that time, this was in 2019. This is after the 2014 annexation of Crimea and asking him to make nice with Putin even then. So it was crazy on its face even when they're sitting there in 2019. In the context of today, it's just even more striking.
Andrei Binchenko says his life will be forever split in two, before and after the day the Russians came. He remembers the skies over his home in Hostomel, near Kiev, suddenly swarming with dozens of attack helicopters. He says they flew in a low formation, like they were on parade. And soon after, he says, Russian ground forces approached his home. This is where he says they opened fire from a distance. An explosive round landed close by, fracturing his leg. Shrapnel piercing much of his body. But Andrei says he was lucky. He got to hospital before the Russians worked out he used to fight pro-Moscow separatists in eastern Ukraine. He says many veterans from the east were deliberately killed during the occupation. If I had not been wounded, I would have been shot too, he says. Vasily Hilko also survived Russia's occupation, but at great cost. Vasily was shocked by the Russian numbers and firepower that rolled into Bogdanivka, a tiny village northeast of the capital. So many tanks passed, he said, so much ammunition. Every house had 20 soldiers occupying it, including the house where he, his neighbours and family were sheltering. They stayed in the basement, the Russians moved in above. One night, Vasily says, 4 drunk soldiers pushed open the basement door and screamed, "Everyone out by the count of 10, or all will be killed." Vasily says women were screaming, children crying, and as he was the last one through the door, he was blasted from behind with a shotgun. He says nothing was left of the leg, all bones destroyed, just a puddle of blood in minutes. He says 2 days later, some Russian soldiers helped him get to hospital. He still thinks they're beasts, not people. The Russian invasion of areas around Kiev violently interrupted and ended many people's lives, and some would somehow survive brutal, intimate encounters, leaving them forever changed.
The economic effects of the war in Ukraine are spreading far and wide. And that's the main reason the IMF slashed its forecast for economic growth to 3.6% for this year and next. It reflects a 0.8% downgrade for this year from their last forecast, which was only made in January. Now, unsurprisingly, the greatest impact will be felt in Ukraine. The IMF warns of a double-digit contraction of 35% this year, and for Russia's economy to shrink by over 8%. However, all of this is the baseline scenario. If sanctions on Russia were to escalate, with Russian energy being targeted as well, the IMF sees a much greater economic shock. It would be punishing for Russia with an additional 15% drop in GDP by 2027, but it would also drag global GDP down by about 2% just this year, with energy, metal and food prices continuing to climb. And for Europe, hugely reliant on Russian energy, they say the impact would be sizable with a 3% drop in GDP, which is why sanctions on Russian energy remains a hotly debated issue for EU member states. Anna Stewart, CNN, London.